We have at least one ambulance on our line up here, and he might like to come in actually at this moment, because the greater part of the firefighting display is actually over. I don't know whether Gary Pollard can hear me, if he'd like to come in with the Range Rover ambulance. This is an interesting vehicle. It's one of those supplied to the Somerset Ambulance, the county ambulance service, as it was in those days. West Country ambulances now, of course, because they're no longer operated on a county basis. And this one is a Range Rover with a Herbert Lomas body, and it's one of 4 that were bought by Somerset County Council in 1972. It was they were specifically designed for use off-road. Of course, Somerset has a lot of areas like Exmoor and Cheddar Gorge and so on, where a four-wheel drive vehicle is very useful. And of course they were used in bad weather in the winter. And I think this is the only, I don't know if it's the only survivor of the 4 that were operated by Somerset, but certainly it's the only one that appears around the rally circuit. A lot of them, of course, would have gone to St John Ambulance and the Red Cross and so on when they came out of county service. And then more of our fire appliances coming in now. The first one coming around is, as you can see, is a Land Rover. It's an L4P. It's a long wheelbase Land Rover. L4P, L stands for light, 4 four-wheel drive, P for pump, and this one, as you can see, operated in the Isles of Scilly. The Cornish Fire Brigade, or Cornish Fire and Rescue as they are now, they operated a lot of Land Rovers, and before them often gypsies, because obviously a lot of coastal towns, particularly in Cornwall, have very narrow roads, very narrow streets for their vehicles. Meanwhile, the other vehicles come in. We've seen the carrier Greencock. He's now lining up alongside there. Jackie Gillard driving, actually, because Colin Gillard is actually driving the Isles of Scilly Land Rover, which is owned by, recently purchased actually by Gary Pollard. And then coming alongside me here, we have Norman Gamlin with another Range Rover. Quite unusual, this one, because this is a Carmichael, still owned by Somerset Fire Brigade. It was used at Dulverton, stationed at Dulverton, for use on Exmoor for heath fires and so on. It's not, as a lot of people think, a 6x6 vehicle. The extra axle is there simply to take the weight, particularly of the water tank on the back. As I say, it served at Dulverton, still retained as a museum vehicle by Somerset, or Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue as it is now. And its place has been taken at Dulverton by a German Pinzgau vehicle which does the same work. Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue have a second Pinzgau which is based at Cheddar for use in Cheddar Gorge. And then there's Norman's own vehicle coming, another L4P, another Land Rover fire appliance. This one was in private hands with VOC and British Oil and Cake Mills in Bristol at Avonmouth, I think, and hence the Avonmouth registration, typical of an industrial fire appliance, because all the big factories and industrial units had their own fire services, and that is a typical example of the small appliance that was used on a factory site. Another Range Rover. This is the more often seen military version, and as you can see, it is operated at Exeter Airport. Left-hand drive, because it was originally intended it should go abroad. It was due to go to Iran, ordered by the Shah's government, but then the Shah was deposed and it never got there. And it was used as a demonstrator by Carmichael, who based at Worcester, and went to from them to Exeter Airport. And in fact, it was the first vehicle on the scene when Vickers Viscount crashed near Ottery St Mary in 1980. And you see an aerial photograph of that site, of which there are a number around. You will see this Carmichael there on site, owned now by Tim Wren from Ottery St Mary. I spoke earlier about Cornwall, the Cornish County Fire Brigade, and the Austin Gypsies that they used. Austin Gypsy, of course, was the great rival to Land Rover, and Cornwall used, I don't know how many, but a large number of these little gypsy fire appliances designed for use in the small coastal towns and villages. They could get up the narrow roads, the narrow streets, and were ideal appliances for that job. And this one you can see there has got the pump on the front. It's got the bell, which came before the flashing lights and the two tones. That's a Winkworth bell, as it's called, made by the Winkworth Company. And this one operated from St Maur's and St Denis. And then our oldest fire appliance here, and probably one of the best known in this part of the world, and this is the lovely old Leyland Cub, owned by Bernard Land from Bernard. I'm not quite sure how long he's been. It was hugely Salterton in 1939, served during the Second World War at Plymouth, Exeter, sold the scrap in 1964, was found in a derelict condition actually near Doncaster, and was restored by Bernard and his sons. And that's what's called the braidwood body. That's the sort of fire appliance you very often see black and white where the firefighters are hanging on desperately onto the outside. Another of our old stagers, this one owned by Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue. This is Jemima. And Jemima is a Dennis F8 dating from 1955, and she is looked after by Chris Swindle, who also looks after the fire station at Ottery St Mary, and she served at Dartmouth not for terribly long, because she blew her engine climbing up the hill out of Dartmouth, just opposite the Royal Naval College, was taken out of service, and then was brought for preservation. And she is, as I say, was brought back in 1997 by the Chief Fire Officer of Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue, and is now a museum vehicle, if you like, and is taken around to rallies by Chris. Known as Jemima, because when she was at first in preservation, she was doing a pumping demonstration. There was water everywhere, and this lady came up and said, "Has this fire engine got a name?" And she was told no, and she said, "Well, I think it ought to be called Jemima, because she's paddling in the water after Jemima Puddler." We've seen one ex-airfield Range Rover, and this is Graham Hart. Graham standing there. I think Sister Maureen is driving it. And this, as you can see, served with the Royal Navy and served at the Royal Naval Air Station at Culdrose in Cornwall. And this is what's called a TACR, TACR2, Truck Airfield Crash and Rescue. And there again, that is typical of the vehicles that were used by the RAF and by the Royal Naval Air Service at their stations up and down the